Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. One problem we have is that we are getting used to having these virtual meetings. I was trying to remember, it was 2 years ago when we had our last in-presence meeting during the spring meetings, and I think I had a chance, opportunity to be with you during the October 2019 annual meeting. So it has been a long ride since then. And I guess in tune with that kind of setup, I'll probably will start my presentation in what it would have been a completely bizarre and different way of chatting by a finance minister, but it's something that we are getting used to use these days. So just so that you have an idea, I'm going to give you the number of vaccines that are being shipped and are arriving to Mexico this week. And we have 3.9 million vaccines from AstraZeneca arriving today, 620 from Cancino on Wednesday, and 1.5 million from Pfizer arriving tomorrow, and then 1.1 from AstraZeneca from a different source arriving on Friday. And why is that important, given that you are in DC and you are not going to be vaccinated by this one? It's just that this week, the total number adds up to 7.1 million shots. And that's around the total number that the country had put until 2 weeks ago. So just in 1 week, we have been inoculating more or less the same number of people that we inoculate between the last week of December and, let's say, the second week of March. So that means that we are moving from a setup in which we have little vaccines to one in which the challenge is going to be to have enough vaccinators, enough people putting shots. And that's exactly what is going to put us in a completely different trend, both on the health part and also on the economic part, which is the one which I'm responsible. We are expected to have to conclude this week the second milestone of our vaccination program. The first one was to be able to provide shots to people working in COVID hospitals. The second one is to vaccinate everybody over 60 or all senior citizens. And at some point, I guess probably around Thursday or Friday, we will be completing that. And next week we will be, and that's an interesting twist from the economic perspective. We will start vaccinating teachers. And why is this important? Is because that changed the focus of the program from first starting to those who are more exposed or most vulnerable to then those which will allow us to start opening certain sectors of the economy, and being able to open schools at some point in the next few weeks is going to be extremely important. It's going to be extremely important for several reasons. One is for the kids itself, but another one is for equity issues related to the economy. As the kids, like in most parts of the world, has stayed in home taking classes, one of the parents very often needs to stay with them, just taking care of them, and very often that's the women at home. So it has the fact that schools are not open is having an impact in the students per se, but it's also having an equity impact in the labor market. Like in most countries, the ones who are more vulnerable are female. 2/3 of people staying at home are women. But let me get back to where I started. We in a very schematic way have divided the whole COVID process in 4 phases. The first phase was a big lockdown, which in Mexico officially started on April 1st of last year, about a year ago, and it spans for 2 months, April and May. The truth is that although that's where the large impact on the economy was felt, in several sectors and in certain particular regions, it started to be felt before that. And there are a few states in Mexico which have a very distinctive presence of the tourist activity, and that's Quintana Roo, where Cancun is, and Los Cabos. And it's also where probably close to 70–80% of the tourists are from abroad. So in those states, the crisis started to be felt, not when the lockdown started in Mexico, but when the lockdown started abroad. So the cycle is actually much more closely related to the one in the US. And because these are very, very concentrated economies, which with not much of the diversification, that's where the crisis was felt more. Just so that give you an idea, and this was the extreme case in Mexico. In Quintana Roo, 24% of all the formal jobs were lost during the lockdown. That's also a period of great uncertainty in the world, as it may happen with a new virus. Nobody was clear how long it would last, what will be all the complex economic ramifications. And one of the most important impacts of that was the acceleration of risk aversion. And between February last year and March last year, the peso moved from being from 18 pesos per dollar to around 25 pesos per dollar. So even before we start having an impact on the health front, and even before we start having an impact on the real economy, we start having impacts on the financial part and exchange rate. So that's why some of the first reactions of the government during the big lockdown were not necessarily related to the real economy, but related to the financial sector. So during March, we extend the number of hedging and forwards both in Mexico and liquidated in pesos. We introduced several measures with the banking regulator that allow firms and persons to postpone the payments of debt service without falling into default. That was probably one of the most successful measures, etc. And that's during the great lockdown is when we ramp up all our health capability. Right now, everybody is focusing on vaccines and vaccination and vaccination speed in the world. But about a year ago, everybody was trying to get ventilators and making sure that we have enough beds, etc. It's interesting how priorities have been changing over time. So that period ends on May, on the last day of May, and that's when we very cautiously start reopening the economy. And the way that we did it was in a very, I would say, unusual way. Rather than start reopening, we relabeled three sectors, and we labeled them as being essential sectors. And those sectors, and I'm going to start with the one which is much closer related to our relationship with abroad, and particularly with the US, was the auto sector. And the idea was that given that the US started their lockdown before, and they also finished their lockdown before us, we need to synchronize the opening of the auto sector, which is extremely connected to the value-added change of the car industry in the US, to the time in which the US will open that. And before that, one of the main bets of Mexico about how to push the economy up was on the free trade agreement. The free trade agreement was signed just a few weeks before COVID started in the world. So we were trying to position the country again in the trade front. The second sector was the construction sector, and there were several reasons why was this important to us. One of them is that the construction sector is a leading indicator. It tends to move ahead on the cycle, but it's also an activity that is mostly done in non-closed spaces. So the probability of contagion during that was smaller. So that's where we started on June 1st last year. And little by little, we're starting to open the economy. And that's exactly what you look on the numbers. During the lockdown, the impact on the economy was extremely high. And it's not surprising that during the second quarter of last year, we have a reduction on the economic activity of 18.7 percentage points. Just so that you have an idea, the largest drop on a yearly basis of the Mexican economy was during the Great Depression in 1932, and that was around 14%. So the impact of COVID on the Mexican economy during the second quarter was larger than our worst year on the Great Depression. But the numbers are starting to improve since June 1st, and we have a better third quarter, and actually an even better fourth quarter. The fact is, by the end of the fourth quarter, there were very specific sectors that were already starting to perform better than the pre-COVID period, and those were the sectors related to exports and manufacturing. So everything was going in a much better shape, except that the recovery is asymmetrical. I mean, those sectors which are highly intensive in human contact are lagging way behind, and that's movie cinemas, gyms, hotels, airline, transport, etc. And there are some other sectors that are doing better. Our second phase started, as I said, in June 1st, and actually finished on just before Christmas Eve on December 21st. And that's when we got the first shipment of vaccines. And for those which were, I mean, we're starting to apply them a day later. So actually, the first shot was put on Christmas Eve on December 21st. Very good timing. And the idea is that when we start into the vaccination period, is when we will start changing the shape, both on the health issues, but also on the economic front. We expect during this period, probably around June, in a month and a half, 2 months, to have around close to 80 million shots being administered, and that is going to start getting us close to the herd immunity. But that's also what will start getting us close to being able to open the economy fully. And that our fourth phase is that exactly what we will be a post-pandemic economy. Now, the post-pandemic economy, as we are thinking about it, and as I know the people are thinking about it in the US and in many other places, shouldn't be just where we left it in 2019. 2020 shouldn't be thought as an impasse between where we were and just restart there. There are many things that the COVID brought to the surface and are making very visible for all of us. One issue, just for starters, is inequality. Although everybody is at risk of being infected by COVID, the fact is that those who have jobs which cannot be done virtually, the fact is that those who are at the lower end of the income distribution are much more risk to do that. And by the way, same is happening with the vaccination. I happened to be in Chicago last week, exactly a week ago. We were trying to make sure to include some Mexicans who have been living abroad there for years into the financial sector. So So we were handing their first banking accounts in a Mexican bank as opposed to a US bank, and have an opportunity to chat a little bit about it. And the US vaccination program the rollout is impressive. You guys are applying an average close to 3 million vaccines per day. And I was checking the numbers for yesterday. They were close to 4 million. But for the Hispanic and the African American communities, the numbers are very different. The Hispanic community has half of what they should be done proportionally to their population, and it's basically because they don't know where to go, how to be reached, etc., or they are afraid of be given their legal status. But that's happening everywhere and in every sector. So inequality is one of the issues. The other aspect for the post-COVID economy is to recognize that health services were extremely important for the pandemic, but now we have to make it extremely important for the post-pandemic world. The only health challenge is not COVID. There are many health challenges, and we need to take advantage that we scale up our health services and take it from there, from our new trends. And the third one, and I'll probably want to start with this at the moment, is that COVID put a large stress on the economy, but also on public finances. And it did it in a two different way and in an asymmetric way. Countries need to spend more on health, so that's something that was unplanned in 2020. But also as the economy took a hit, the revenues related to economic activity, like the value-added tax or the revenue taxes, went down. And same happened at the sovereign level. So one thing that we face is the need to have and to build moving forward stronger fiscal systems, both as a sovereign at that sovereign level.